Hi everybody, my name is Yvette. Today I'm going to show you how to work the half double crochet rib stitch, which I used on the edging of these boot cuffs here that you'll see. A little bit close up here. You'll see that it creates this ribbed effect. The half double crochet is the one we're going to be working on today. You'll see that it's different from just a standard double crochet, or excuse me, half double crochet. You see that in the ribbed version you actually have these ribbings that are like a 3D raised effect. Regular standard half double crochet, you don't have that ribbing effect on there. Half double crochet ribbing can be used for the edging of hats, mittens, gloves, boot cuffs, leg warmers, anything like that. Or you could even use it to create an entire hat, a ribbed hat, and just stitch up the top of it and cinch it at the top, creating a simple ribbed hat as well. If you haven't watched any of my other videos on how to half double crochet or single crochet or do any of the basic stitches, you might want to watch those videos first to get a little bit of practice before we move on to the half double crochet rib stitch today. I will not be working quite as slowly as I do in my beginner tutorial videos. So at this point you might have a little bit of experience already with those videos. And if you do, it'll make it a little bit easier working this stitch, which is just a variation of the standard half double crochet stitch to give you that raised ribbing. So I'm going to be just using a J size crochet hook today, and I'm going to create a chain of 8 after creating my adjustable slip knot. I also have videos on the adjustable slip knot and how to create your foundation chain if you need to know that information as well. So I'm going to create a chain of 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So here's my basic foundation chain of 8, and I don't chain very tightly. I like to give a little bit of looseness to that so that it has a little bit more stretch to it and it doesn't bunch up at the beginning. So as you may already know by watching the other videos, with a half double crochet we're going to add 2 additional chains at the end of each row for turning space when you turn your hook around to start working down your row of stitches. Make sure you always work into this nice top row here and make sure you don't twist your work as you're working your stitches when you're working your half double crochet rib stitch. So we're going to skip these first 2 turning chains that we created here, this one and this one, and we're going to work into this next chain right here. So in order to work the half double crochet stitch, we're going to work just the basic half double crochet stitch for the first row of 8 stitches on our foundation chain. Again, if you're not familiar with how to do the half double crochet stitch, you may want to go ahead and check out my YouTube video on how to work the half double crochet stitch, just so you're familiar with this basic stitch. Oops, as it will be used just a variation from that stitch for this rib stitch version. So I'm just half double crocheting all 8 into all 8 chains, each of the chains along my row here. Okay, so we've got one more. So I've got a basic row of half double crochet to start, and those 2 extra ones are on the end here, and those were my turning chains to give me this extra space. Without those turning chains, as I explained in my other videos, the work would be squished like this here because you don't have that little ladder of those extra 2 stitches to give you that width and that depth so that it's nice and even along the whole row, including the edges. So since we're working the half double crochet, this is where we're going to add our 2 chains, extra chains, to the end of our row for turning. 1, 2, we're going to skip those when we start working our row, and we're going to turn our work over to start working back down the row here. Now normally when you're working your half double crochet, when you skip these 2 chains on the end, normally a standard half double crochet you would be working in through these front holes, catching the front and back yarn as you see here along the edge, front and back, front and back, okay? But to work the rib stitch, you're wanting to create that 3D effect. So we're going to actually work into just the back portion of the yarn instead of working through both the front and the back in this manner here. So we're going to skip those 2 chains on the end that we created for turning. We're going to wrap our yarn around our hook, and we're going to turn our work sideways or upways so we can see the top of the work, and we're just going to work into that back chain, and we're going to work our standard double crochet stitch in each of those back chains along the back here, instead of working them in both of them like we normally would a regular half double crochet stitch. Okay, so we're just working 1 half double crochet into each of the back chain of our foundation row that we half double crocheted. So I'm going to go into each of these continuously to the end. Now you want to make sure that you're counting your stitches as you work along this row. It's easy to get lost in the count, and then all of a sudden your work starts kind of trailing off and you end up having something that starts out this wide and it gets narrower and narrower. So that's my 7th stitch. You're going to see that I have this little extra end here. That's one of the ways you're going to know that you're not finished with your row yet. It's kind of going to look a little funky compared to the other stitches as we turned our work like this here for your last stitch. You're going to see all this. This here is not a stitch here, but this is the front and back portion of that stitch that you would normally work for your last stitch here if you were doing a half double crochet from the front. So we're going to work into this little portion here. You might have to use your finger to grab that yarn on the back and work into that back portion of the stitch. So now we've completed our row, and we have our 8 half double crochets along the top here. You're going to see how we're forming this little 3D effect that's sort of lifted off of the work compared to our standard half double crochet, which is flatter. You can see the separate rows that we created, however you don't have that 3D effect, which is why we skip the front part of the row as we're working this row, and we work into the back section because it gives you that ribbed effect with that. So now that we've got to the end of our row, we're going to chain 2 again for our turning work, and then we're going to flip our work over again, and we're going to do the same thing working down the row. We're going to skip the 2 chains we just created, and we're going to half double crochet into the back of the work. Here's again the front where we would normally work it. We're just going to turn it sideways, and we're going to just catch that back portion instead. And we're just going to work, there's our second, so we're just going to count 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and again we get to that last one. You see that it's a little bit odd looking from the side. It's kind of hard to tell, a little more difficult to tell the back and the front here, but you can see it. Just grab that with your finger, and now we've got a couple rows and it's starting to be defined. You're starting to see the raised rows, and when you continue working on, you're going to see that it's just the same on the front and the back. It's just that the rows are going to be opposite each other. Again, you're going to make sure you always chain 2 at the end of your row before you turn your work back over and start working again down your row. Again, make sure you count your stitches so that you stay consistent with your 8 stitches or however many you want to create. With this pattern, you can create any number of stitches, even or odd, to create it. Just remember to always add 2 to the end for your turning stitches. And that is what I used for this pattern on the edging when I created this pattern for the boot cuffs. If you're wanting the pattern for the boot cuffs, I will be adding that to my YouTube channel as well, so please check back and see if it's there, and I'll show you how to create these cute boot cuffs and with all the different stitches here that I used for the boot cuffs. If you have any questions, please email me at YvetteMariesFineArt@gmail.com. I'll put that in the area below with the information, and I will get back to you as quickly as I can if you have any questions. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.